Growing up in a conservative evangelical culture, I heard a lot about the Antichrist, and there were often a lot of kind of common themes about who that might be. You see this in Left Behind, as well as a number of other books and movies in that genre. And there were a lot of consistencies. There's going to be some sort of tech genius, some evil tech genius, right? Because that's how we're going to get the mark of the beast. Is it's going to be some sort of microchip or technology. They're going to be an international figure with a lot of political and social and capitalistic and commercial influence. And then, of course, also they would be a liberal, right? That was always also very key. And other than that last part, Peter Thiel is someone who kind of fits that model. So it was interesting to hear him talking recently to the New York Times about the Antichrist. And he's got some unusual theories about who the Antichrist will be. And he's pretty sure it's not going to be some media tech person like himself. Oh no, it's going to be a little old environmental peace activist. That's who we should really be scared of. Of course, as he developed this idea, he threw out some Bible verses and really got them wrong. And we'll get to those in a moment. But first, it's important to look at who he thinks the Antichrist will be.
The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop. And this is what you need to regulate. It's the opposite of the picture of Baconian science from the 17th, 18th century, where the Antichrist is like some evil tech genius, evil scientist who invents this machine to take over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
Have this wealthy venture capitalist with a lot of technology companies telling us who we really should be worried about is not someone like himself, but this environmental peace activist is exactly what you would expect someone like the Antichrist to say. Again, I'm not suggesting that Peter Thiel is the Antichrist, but I think it's fascinating to see what he thinks the Antichrist would be and why it definitely could not be someone like himself, someone that actually has the money and the technology to institute some of the things that we were told to be worried about growing up in conservative evangelical churches. But the reason why he has this weird philosophy is he's also got some unusual readings of the Bible. You see, as he's talking in the interview, he wants to talk about this idea of why we should keep pushing technology. We should really be scared of those people who are concerned about the environmental impacts of our unregulated economic growth and technology advances, things that he's wanting to do. And so, right, the people that are stopping him from just doing whatever he wants to do, they're not only dangerous in general, he thinks they might even be the Antichrist. And he develops this a little bit with a reference to say that there's no reference to nature in the Old Testament.
I don't know. I think the word nature does not occur once in the Old Testament, and so if you and there is a word in which a sense in which the way I understand the Judeo-Christian inspiration is it is about transcending nature. It is about overcoming things.
And so that's why he's like, hey, our whole goal here is that we're supposed to be transcending nature. We're not actually be concerned about nature. Now, that's an odd claim, but it's also based on just a false reading of the Old Testament. It is true that you will find some translations of the Bible don't include the word nature. They translate some of the Hebrew words a little bit differently. King James, for instance, the New International Version. But then there's a number of translations of the Bible that do actually translate various Hebrew words to be nature in English. Here are just a couple of them. We have the Holman Christian Standard Bible, which comes from the Southern Baptist Convention. There's the New Revised Standard Version, which is a product of the mainline church. So we actually have conservative and liberal translations of the Bible that do in fact put the word nature in the Old Testament. So again, his philosophy is weird even if it was a true statement, but he's apparently not that well versed in the Bible. Now, it actually got even worse later in the interview, as again, he's trying to make this argument, while the real danger, the real Antichrist, is not going to be someone like him who's pushing for technological advances, who wants unregulation, who wants people just to be able to make as much money as they want to, doing whatever they want to, but it's the people that are concerned about the environment. That's the real danger. And he did this by making a reference to something in 1 Thessalonians.
Is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted to the FDA regulates not just drugs in the U.S., but de facto in the whole world because the rest of the world defers to the FDA. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission effectively regulates nuclear power plants all over the world.
Those reference to the beginning of First Thessalonians 5 is a little weird because the Antichrist isn't actually mentioned in that verse. He says that the Antichrist is the one who's saying peace and security, and that's what they're promising. But that's not actually what we find in the text. Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come upon them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Now, the point of this isn't that the Antichrist is rising to power by claiming peace and safety, but that the apocalyptic moment, whatever that might be in the text, and there's a long debate, we're not going to get into all of that as to whether or not there even is an Antichrist and some sort of Armageddon type ending. But whatever the text is referring to, that moment is going to sneak up on people. They're going to be surprised about it. They're not going to expect it. They're going to think they have peace and safety. Not that they're voting for or following some Antichrist who's promising that, but just they think that things are going well in the world. Perhaps they think that because they've been lured into passive submission on their couch with their, virtual reality sets and their AI chat box telling them everything they need to know. This type of things that venture capitalists and tech bros are creating for us today. We can also see other passages in Scripture that help explain this text perhaps a little bit better. Over in Matthew 24, Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving up in marriage, up to the day that Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." So again, the whole point of these texts are that it's going to be a surprise, that we don't know what's coming, that it's not that there's some peace and security Antichrist that we need to be concerned about. Instead, what Peter Thiel is doing is creating a theology to justify his politics, to say, hey, you shouldn't be regulating me. You shouldn't be stopping me. You shouldn't be preventing me from destroying the environment. You shouldn't be preventing me from creating all of this technology that could hurt a lot of people and lay people off and put people out of work. All of these types of regulations that are designed for the safety of people, you shouldn't be doing that. And if you do, you're really like the Antichrist. And again, if we really want to be concerned about an Antichrist type of figure, Peter Thiel is exactly the type of person we should be worried about. Because in the interview, he was literally asked if he wanted the human species to survive, and he had to think about that.
I think
yeah.
you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in
Should
this.
the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But
how absurd is this? That someone with a theology and a philosophy that isn't concerned about the rest of us, that isn't concerned about humans living and surviving, but is more interested in his technology and I guess maybe a few wealthy people like himself living, that's not someone we should be paying attention to. So, and in fact, someone with all of this political power, with all of this money, with this influence in American politics right here at this moment, that's exactly the type of person that I was taught to be worried about and that I'm still concerned about. Again, I'm not saying that Peter Thiel is the Antichrist, but as we see him developing a religious political philosophy that is very anti-Christ, we should be concerned about his influence that he has in American politics today. And hopefully, though, at least in churches, we will not submit to his AI chat box generated made up theology about the Bible.